And bipartisan legislation was introduced in the Senate this week that may just shake up ongoing negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. The bill, which is called the Nuclear Weapon-Free Iran Act of 2013, now has the support of 26 senators, both Democrats and Republicans. The bill would authorize new economic sanctions on Iran if it does not hold up its part of an interim agreement to limit its nuclear program. The measure, if approved, would entail harsh restrictions on Iran's petroleum industry while also imposing financial restrictions. The introduction of this bill comes just a month after diplomats from Iran and 6 world powers signed an accord in Geneva that temporarily puts a halt on certain parts of Tehran's nuclear program in return for some relief from its current economic sanctions. And the Obama administration has said that new sanctions would completely undermine those efforts. Here's what President Obama said today at a press briefing.
What I've said to members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, is there is no need for new sanctions legislation. Not yet.
Well, to discuss this bill and its implications, I was joined earlier by retired Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. I first asked him why this bill would be introduced at a time when the U.S. and Iran are so close to achieving a comprehensive peace agreement.
I think there are people who don't want that peace agreement to be achieved. We know the obvious characters like Bibi Netanyahu and AIPAC here in this country advocating for Netanyahu. There are other people, though, like my own Senator Mark Warner, whom I just sent a note to, that are inexplicable in terms of why they're signing on with senators like Robert Menendez and Lindsey Graham and John McCain and others. I think many of these people want war. They do not see diplomacy as a way to keep Iran absolutely from having a nuclear weapon, and they believe war is a way. And of course, I've got news for them. War is going to make Iran get a nuclear weapon, not keep them from getting one, plus drag the United States into another trillion-dollar enterprise in Southwest Asia. But they don't seem to believe that. They think that dropping a few bombs and then mowing the grass afterwards, as they say, is sufficient to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and diplomacy isn't.
Well, you mentioned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's take a listen to what he has said in the past about the historic deal.
Iran is taking only cosmetic steps, which it could reverse easily within a few weeks. And in return, sanctions that took years to put in place are going to be eased.
So Iran got the deal of the century, and the international community got a bad deal.
This agreement has made the world a much more dangerous place.
This is a very bad deal.
So can you talk a little bit about the pressure from Israel and how that's sort of playing into this whole thing?
Well, Netanyahu has been saying this now for about 20 years, by my calculation. When he started saying it really adamantly, they had 3,000 centrifuges, and all of his efforts, hardline efforts, you might say, have resulted in their having now some 19 or so thousand centrifuges. So it hasn't worked, and it won't work in the future. I understand Prime Minister Netanyahu's position, and Avigdor Lieberman and others like him in the Israeli government and out of the government. They are maintaining their political power based on the fear of Iran, based on keeping Israelis worked up about Iran, based on keeping that issue in front of the Israeli people. That's how they're maintaining their political power. And understand what this is all about. It's not about nuclear weapons, not really. It's about who's going to be the power in the Gulf. You've got 3 contending parties here. You've got the Saudis and the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council. You've got Israel with the United States behind it. And of course, you've got the United States allied with Saudi Arabia for all practical purposes too. And then you've got Iran, really the only stable state in the region other than Israel. And this is a contention, a power game in the Persian Gulf. Israel does not want a rapprochement between Tehran and Washington because that means Israel, by power implications, would mean less. And so it's really all about a power game in the Gulf. It has nothing to do except superficially with nuclear weapons and who has them and who doesn't.
Well, it does seem like there's also a power game here in Washington. You know, the White House has said that they would veto this bill if it actually were to get passed. So for some of the people who are really trying to push this bill through, like Senators Menendez and Schumer, are they just engaging in political theater here?
Well, they are to a certain extent, just as some others did for the budget battle that we had, which was probably the most unbelievable thing to show the rest of the world about the United States I've ever seen in my almost 70 years on this earth. And the Congress seems as if it has lost its bearings of late. It doesn't seem to be able to deal with foreign policy issues or domestic issues at all. And this is just another case in point. And when you have senators like Schumer and Menendez, who are more or less taking a position against their own president, it makes it even more ridiculous, especially when it is, as I said, such a warmongering position. And let's be very clear. It is a warmongering position.
Right, and it does, like you said, it does seem like it would take that achievement away from President Obama. And, you know, there are a lot of Democrats that are behind this bill, which is interesting. But one key Republican sponsor of the legislation, Senator Mark Kirk, has said this of the bill. He said, quote, "The American people rightfully distrust Iran's true intentions, and they deserve an insurance policy to defend against Iranian deception during negotiations." I mean, do you think it's really the case that the American people are very wary of Iran's intentions, or is this just something he sort of came up on his own?
Well, we have to remember that this is a man who said that he came to Washington, and this is almost a direct quote, to protect Israel. Now, if I had voted for a senator or a representative who said that, I would quickly unvote for him, because I don't send my senator or my representative to Washington to protect Israel. That's not supposed to be their primary purpose. So just the fact that you quoted Kirk is enough to disbelieve him. But let's look at this issue from the perspective that I think people like him are looking at it. They're saying that the long-term interest of Israel is served by military action against Iran, because that's essentially what they're advocating. If you don't want diplomacy, you're advocating military action, because you can't just sit there and do nothing. Let's just see what that does for Israel. Military action against Iran is going to start a conflagration in that region of the world that will last for at least a decade, maybe two. Israel's long-term security is already looking antsy. It's got Egypt on one side, not knowing where it's going, not knowing from minute to minute if it's going to adhere to the peace treaty. It's got Jordan falling apart. It's got Syria involved in now almost over 2 years of civil war. It's got Iraq back in a civil war again. This is not a time for Israel to be making new enemies and starting new wars. It's a desperate time for Israel in many respects. I don't see Israel's long-term security being served by yet another war in Southwest Asia. So when you posit Netanyahu's short-term political interest, that is staying in power, against Israel's long-term security, Netanyahu, Kirk, and all those who support their position come out on the short end of the stick. They're actually advocating for Israel's insecurity, not its long-term security. I don't trust the Iranians, but I do trust the negotiators to make sure that we can verify whatever it is they conclude. That's where my trust lies, not in the Iranians.
And that was retired Army Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson.